Continuing from page 206, from a mountain in Tibet. I went into the retreat house gradually. Over a period of 3 days, I spent more and more time in total darkness, in order to accustom both my mind and my eyes to the experience. Normally, the instructing Lama visits the retreatant to talk them through the visualization for each day of the retreat. Both the visualizations themselves and the daily contact help to keep the retreatant's mind stable. Tulku Urgent informed me that he was not going to do that with me. He gave me the most advanced instruction, which is simply to maintain present moment awareness and to regard all thoughts, feelings, and experiences that arise as empty. So, no visualizations, no mantras, just sitting meditation. As I've said, I am not a worrier, but I did feel some trepidation as the complete darkness closed around me, and I prepared to face my mind without any distraction whatsoever. I trusted Tulku Urgent completely, and I felt that my faith was strong. Even so, I knew that I would experience hallucinations. Akong had told me that even the most experienced meditator will inevitably hallucinate, because the inner winds or energies are very difficult to control. That's why it's important to eat foods that help to rebalance the subtle energies. Meat is said to be good for this, but my diet was very simple and vegetarian. As I rapidly discovered for myself, sensory deprivation stimulates mental activity. There is nothing to interrupt it, no one to talk to, nothing to look at except your own mind. So if you start to see something and to think that it is really happening, there is nothing to show you that it's not real. There are stories of people who are convinced there is a tiger in the room with them, or that part of their own body is meat to eat. If you have any hidden fear, then it will manifest itself, and you will be confronted with it again and again. I reminded myself that I was not a prisoner, even though the door was locked. Renato was coming once a day. We were forbidden to speak or to see each other, but if I were truly losing my mind, I could, of course, ask him for help. I didn't think it would come to that, but it was a necessary safety precaution. I just had to hope that I would be able to see through the hallucinations. I was careful to listen out for his arrival with my food and the bucket. Aside from the practicalities, it was my only marker of the passage of time. Before long, I lost track of how many days I had been there. The first few days, while I could still count them, passed without incident. I felt I was able to maintain present moment awareness. I slept, though I suspect not for long. Then the imaginings began. I began to think that there were spiders crawling over my body. I was prepared for this. As soon as the fears arose, I would look directly at them and recognize them as the product of my mind rather than reality. It was essential not to indulge them, even for a second. More and more, I had the feeling of being surrounded by moonlight. When I put out my hand in front of me, I still could not see it. Yet the whole room was bathed in soft light. My sense was that it was the inner light of the mind manifesting all around me. It was an odd sensation, but I welcomed it. At some point, I realized that I could see through the walls. This was truly strange. I could see the stars in the night sky above my ceiling, just as if I were outside looking directly at them. I wondered whether I was hallucinating, but after I finished retreat, I was outside one night when I spotted the same constellation. When I mentioned this to Tulku Urgyen, he told me that the sacred texts say that if your retreat goes well, then you can see through the walls to the stars. By the end of my experience, I felt deep calm. I had become accustomed to these otherworldly experiences and recognized that they too were simply the products of my mind. I think Renato actually had more of a hard time than I did. He worried about me a great deal and was not used to the living conditions in Nepal, so he struggled with that. He was a kind person, but definitely the worrying type. My retreat finished abruptly. The idea is to emerge slowly over 3 days, so as to give the mind and body time to readjust to normal life. Daylight is painful on your eyes after 49 days in total darkness, and disorientation is inevitable. But Tibetan New Year was beginning, so I just came straight out. Thrangu Rinpoche, whom I had known since my days at Rumtek, where he taught me the four foundations, sent a car to get me and take me to the celebrations at Thrangu Tashi Choling, his monastery near Kathmandu. Somebody offered me a cold Coke, and I drank it all down. It tasted so good. Not for long. My body was overwhelmed by its instantaneous return to modern life, and I vomited it all straight back up. I returned to Sami Ling at the beginning of March 1993, feeling mentally invigorated, but physically drained by my experiences. In a photo taken to celebrate the end of the second long retreat, which finished on 6 March, I am surrounded by retreatants in the shrine room, swaddled in heavy clothing and a fur hat. I could not shake the cold that had taken hold of me. 1993 was a year of change. I felt different after witnessing His Holiness the 17th Karmapa's enthronement and completing the dark retreat. My faith was now unshakably strong. In May, we welcomed His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Sami Ling for his second visit. This was a huge event for our community, not least because nearly 5,000 people came to attend His Holiness's public talk. Many of them were moved to tears, and I was buoyed up by this flowering of devotion. There were changes in the everyday world too. In September, I celebrated my 50th birthday. By the time the third long retreat started in November that year, I was virtually running Sami Ling as well as acting as retreat master. You probably won't be surprised to hear that I was still ambivalent about this, despite my commitment to doing as His Holiness the 17th Karmapa had directed and helping my brother. But I knew it was time for me to step up. Akon had been spending more and more time in Tibet, overseeing humanitarian projects there via Rakpa, the charitable organization he and a woman called Leah Weiler had established in 1981. He could see that I had grown in faith and devotion, and gradually he drew me into the day-to-day activity of running Sami Ling. He wanted me to gain in confidence so that I could do what he needed me to do. He had always been tireless in his compassionate work, but now he too was broadening his scope. His project with Rakpa provided food aid and health care to hundreds of people, not just in Tibet, but also in Nepal, South Africa, and all over the globe. It was finally time for me to find a way to be a monk in the world rather than in retreat. My increased responsibilities meant I was less involved in the third long retreat, which ran from November 1993 to November 1997, though I continued to give talks and some interviews. I still love to help, but I confess that I found the admin side of my duties more onerous. I felt very strongly that I would need to ensure that my busy outer life was balanced by deep commitment to my own spiritual path. Sometimes, fortuitously, it felt as if there was no conflict between my spiritual path and my role as a leader of the community. I began to feel that through the force of my own activity, certain things were drawn to me without my desiring them or trying to make them happen. It was as if I were witnessing the laws of karma in real time. It is like planting seeds in a garden. If you plant the seeds of anger and resentment in the mind, then hatred grows. If you plant the seeds of loving kindness and tolerance, compassion grows. We set in motion certain causes, create the right conditions, and then results inevitably follow. That's precisely the way I feel about the Holy Isle project, which has been one of the most rewarding of my whole life.
Om mani pemi hung, om tari turi soha, om hung benza guru pema siri hung.
Om Mani Padme Hung, Om Tari Tari Turi Soha, Om Hung Benza Guru Pema City Hung. Continuing from page 206. This is very nice because there was once a talk about Lama Yeshe Rinpoche's dark retreat and we didn't know about it, so we missed it. And this book gives us a chance to find out what he would have said about it. So it's sort of a restoration of a good opportunity. We're very grateful to Lama Yeshe Rinpoche for repeating this story in a way that we could hear it. This section is starting off with this describing how he went into his dark retreat.
Yeah.
Quite an interesting experience, isn't it?
Yes, without getting the visualizations, this had to go straight into it the hard way.
Isn't that unbelievable?
Then they get to do it the easy way. You got the hard way to do it, you know.
Tulku Urgyen must have seen that he had a capacity to
Yeah.
work with the highest level of instruction.
That's why he done it that way, you know.
Yes.
Yes.
It was a compliment, wasn't it? It was a way of saying, I know you can handle it this way.
Right. Yeah, so that was very, very, very interesting. So he had quite a good experience there, didn't he? A
Yes.
very good experience.
There seemed to be stages of it, didn't there?
Yes, that's right, yeah. But anyway, I'm glad Renato covered for him doing his job. Yes.
So it sounds like there are certain patterns to the dark retreat because the texts have described them, haven't they? And so that even before Lama Yeshe Rinpoche went in, Alkhan Rinpoche had prepared him. And also afterwards, Tulku Urgyen confirmed to him that some of the things that he experienced were things that other people had also experienced.
What they never told him though, they didn't tell him you could see through walls and through the roof and see the stars. They never told him that. He's discovered that when he was in.
I know, isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
And then when he told Tulku Urgyen confirmed that was indeed something that was in the texts, in the sacred texts, that some practitioners could see it.
Yeah.
So he wasn't being set up to feel he had to measure up to a certain quality of practice along those lines.
Yeah.
But he was somewhat prepared with some of the things that might be a little bit startling, so he was not caught by surprise.
I know. Urgent Choke gave him the main key points.
Yes.
So I had to work on the main key points.
Yes.
Yes.
And he had said earlier in the book that when he was working with the retreatants more directly, that he sometimes felt it was helpful to prepare them before something would happen, so that they could ready themselves before they encountered something in their practice. So it sounds like he had the same benefit with the people that were setting the stage for him to go into the dark retreat too.
That's right.
He was prepared, but he wasn't set up to feel like, am I doing it well or not doing it well? So he wasn't told about the accomplishments.
No.
Those would have to come out of his own experience.
He had to find out for himself.
Yeah, they couldn't be promised, and then he would be thinking, oh, I hope I get that, or what if I don't get that?
You just let him experience it himself,
Yes.
you know. Yes.
Trying to minimize hope and fear, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a beautiful description, isn't it?
Yes, it's good.
I'm sure there's a lot he hasn't been able to say about it, but it gives us a taste, and it gives us a sense of what a powerful experience it must surely be, and how it must be very difficult to actually have been prepared adequately to handle some of these challenges.
It's good to help to build up his confidence in these things too.
Yes.
And when it came out, it was very nice. Triangle Rinpoche to send a card to bring him.
Wasn't that beautiful?
For a New Year, that was good.
Yes, it was a nice bridge, wasn't it? So that he was going.
So his eyes were very sore without sunglasses. I don't know whether he did have sunglasses or not, but anyway.
Yeah, what a shock.
Usually when you come out, you'd have sunglasses, you know.
That's a nice way to be transitioned through, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also taking it gradually so that you could become accustomed to back with the having so much sensory information and having people talk to you and all that again.
Now when you get a certain level, there's no really much difference between the long dream and the short dream, you know.
Yes.
There's no much difference.
Yes. Continuity of consciousness.
Ah, yeah.
So he's giving us a lot of encouragement to stick with our practice, because not that we will all be able to do what he has done in any one particular lifetime, but it does help us see what is possible within the human body, which is such a precious way to practice and such a precious way to be incarnated, because we can do so much spiritual practice.
Yes.
If we can seize the moment and the opportunity.
Yes. So I ended up getting back to Samueling after all that experience he had.
Yes.
Bodh Gaya and
Karmapa's enthronement.
Then Urgent Tulku and all that stuff in that retreat. Everything was just one thing after another.
Yes.
That's quite a lot to take in, you know.
Yes.
And then I suppose after that he found himself back at Samueling.
That's right.
Yeah, and anyway, the usual probably the usual goings on there, but a bit more work done in the temple would be done by then, you know.
Yes.
And when he was up at the roundhouse, he had pretty much experienced that a lot more things going on there with the noise and stuff like that, you know.
Oh yes, the work was still going on.
Yeah. But anyway, it's a change. You can come into it, go into the retreat and come back out again. Go in again and come back out again. That was a change. Usually you stay in, you know. You don't come out.
Yes.
And when you come in and out, it's a different thing, you know.
Yes. Well, these were once in a lifetime experiences, weren't they? And he had
Yeah.
gotten past the stage where Khenpo Arthur said he would break his legs if he went out. He'd stabilized his practice to the degree that it would be possible for him actually to leave and return.
Yeah.
But that's quite an accomplishment, because
Yeah.
most people are thrown off, aren't they, if they go out?
That's right. Yeah.
So it was again a recognition that he was achieving quite a lot and stabilizing his practice.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful opening up coming in as he describes his story. You know, it's like at first it's like so much like a clenched fist, fighting.
Yeah.
And then gradually it's starting to open up, and all of a sudden he's discovering the karma is bringing into that openness all these wonderful things.
Yes, well, karma, you never know how karma's going to come to you, you know.
Yes.
It can come both ways, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was having some wonderful benefits from having planted such beautiful seeds, because things were coming into his life that were going to make the spiritual vision and the spiritual dream more and more expansive.
Yeah.
And he was starting to magnetize some of the things that we've been most aware of in his experience of being Holy Owl Project, and all the magical and amazing way in which that began.
Yes.
He wasn't looking for it, and it came to him.
See, that wasn't in his plans or his dream, the Holy Island. That just sprung out of the blue, you know.
Yes. Yes.
Out of the blue, it came. And then when he heard her saying about the vision, then he knew he had to go there.
Yes.
He had to go.
It's a Tibetan way of dealing with things, isn't it? Where you go by the vision, you go by the signs, you go by the indications that are very positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the auspicious connections.
Yeah.
It takes so much for a connection to be auspicious, and when all the variables come together in an auspicious way, it catches everyone's attention and holds it.
Yes. Okay. That's good.
Okay.
Okay.
Okie dokie.
Okie dokie.